Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to an episode of Canadian Investing in the U.S. This week my guest is Dan Desveaux. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Dan. How about you give us a little intro about yourself? I know you're from Sarnia. I know you're a real estate investor. Tell us a little bit more about what you do.
All right, cool. Well, I've been an investor for 15 years, so I got some experience under my belt. I started out just doing buy and holds. My story, well, a little bit of my story is that...
No, let's do the story, because that was what's got me so intrigued, because everyone's like, Dan has an awesome story. Let's
a messed up story, yeah. Well, it's funny because I started 15 years ago, so there's basically, pre-internet, really. So things were different back then. It was only 15 years ago, but it seems like the dark ages, right? Before the internet. When you say before the internet, everybody's young nowadays and they say, what? You're like, there actually was no internet at some point? Anyway, I got involved in real estate by accident. I was at home one night watching TV, late night infomercial came on, and this guy named Tom Vu came on there. Have you ever heard of Tom Vu?
Yeah, I have.
So Tom Vu came on there. He used to do those infomercials with the girls with the boobs and the bikinis and all that stuff, in the Rolls Royce and on his yacht and all this stuff. Anyway, I got hooked on that, and I thought, holy shit, I can do this. And I ended up not taking his course, but there was Carlton Sheets, Robert Allen, all those guru guys back then. And I ended up sending away for Carlton Sheets' it was a gigantic binder you could get.
No money down, or?
Yeah, that was Robert Allen.
Oh, that was Robert Allen. Sorry.
Yeah, Carlton Sheets was the options guy.
Options, yes, yeah.
He literally had a binder like the size of, it was like 6 inches thick, and it was like full of options, all these crazy options you could do. So I sent away, got the binder, and he actually had the cassettes. You could stick a cassette in and listen as you drove around.
Yep.
But it was actually a lot of really good information. It was only $1,000 US, and I ordered it. And it was really good, and I ended up buying my first property from the stuff that was out of that binder. And from that very first house that I bought, it took me a few years it was a rent to own.
Yeah.
And I ended up after a few years, selling that house, and then I took that whole $30,000 that I got from the house, and I bought a plaza with it. All fits in and bought a plaza, and I ended up moving into the plaza with all these crackheads, and it was insane.
So this wasn't a polished plaza then?
Yeah, it was just nuts. Actually, it was a mixed use plaza, so it was like half commercial, half residential. And funny story about that plaza, I just did a presentation for Henri, a real estate group there in London that you talked at one time.
Yeah, I talked at it back in March, I think.
Yeah, I just did a presentation there last week, and it was funny. I was telling the story about this whole how everything turned around. But in that story of buying that first plaza, I actually ended up with a free building. I went in there and I was signing the papers with the lawyer. The guy tells me there was some weird address in there, and I said, "What's this?" And he says, "Well, what do you mean? That's one of the properties." And I said, "What are you talking about? This isn't even in the same corner." It turns out it was when I was originally doing the deal with this guy. I said I wanted all the properties, and he had a property a street away, and he thought I meant all the properties. So he actually just put all his properties in this package. I got a free building out of the deal, free sixplex out of the deal.
What?
How crazy is that? Yeah. So anyway, I ended up selling this thing, a few years later, made some pretty good money on that. And that's sort of what started my journey into real estate. And then I did that for about 10 years. I got a pretty good sized portfolio going. And then, I was always running out of money because in Sarnia, we're in a small town here, doing buy and holds. If you didn't, properties weren't appreciating like they are in the Golden Horseshoe, right? It's not like every year you can go back and refinance and take money out if you're living in an area that's not growing. Right. So I kept running out of money, and then I started getting into flipping houses. And because I had a construction background already, and I started flipping houses, and the first few years were rough, I have to tell you. Even though I had really good experience at construction, the funny part is that the money is not in the in the renovating. The money is in the buy, first of all, and managing people. That was a big lesson I learned there, was managing people. I was terrible at the beginning of managing people. I was too nice. People ripped me off, and I would just say, oh, well, okay, and I had to toughen up. And
so when you're saying managing people, you're talking about tenants, or you're talking about like property managers, or?
When I was flipping.
Flipping. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because obviously anything that has to do with real estate is all about managing, right? Whether you're doing buy and holds or whatever. But yeah, in flipping, 100%. If you can't manage, you're dead in the water. So I had to toughen up, like I said. People were robbing me left, right, and center, and I had to really toughen up. And I had to learn how to manage people. And
were they robbing you like time-wise, like just not showing up, or were they robbing you like just bad quotes or over quotes, or?
You name it. Not doing the work properly, taking off, threatening to sue me. I was always afraid I was going to get sued. People would threaten to kick your ass. I mean, it was nuts. And when you're flipping houses and you got several crews on the go, and you're just hiring people off of Kijiji, which I was basically doing at the beginning, when I didn't know what I was doing. You got a bunch of criminals running around doing your jobs. It was just nuts at the beginning. The first 5 years was crazy, and then I smartened up, and now I have systems in place, and I have crews, and I have staff. So things are running a lot smoother. But I'll tell you, at the beginning, it was mayhem.
Yeah, no, I've done the same thing. I've done the Kijiji hires, and but you know what? That's how you can find some great deals. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit extra work probably, because you don't really know what you're getting. Like to do that in the States it would be a nightmare, because you could, if you're not, they know you're not even there. Like, oh my goodness,
you're basically hiring off Craigslist is the equivalent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're getting criminals and crazy people and people who basically can't work, and they advertise on there, and they've got bad backgrounds, and it's just nuts. I don't know. I mean, obviously you have people that you trust in the U.S. that you deal with, and you've created these relationships over several years, and you can keep going back to that well, and you're once you get your systems in place, you can keep going back to the well, and it's great. But when you have new hires all the time, and you're trying to break people in and teach them systems, and oof, boy, that first few years is tough.
Yep.
I'm sure you've been through the ringer yourself.
Oh yeah, like I did this in Canada for several years before I moved to the States. I didn't go jumping into the States as my first dip in the water. But yeah, people have asked me a bunch of times. They're like, because if I'm doing joint ventures, they'll be like, "Well, did you get other quotes?" No, I didn't, because I trust these people, and I don't want to have a whole mess of nightmares. I'm just gonna keep using the people who work and do the job, do it on time, and do it for the price that it was supposed to be quoted for. And I don't care if they charge me extra, because I'm in Canada, and it's a luxury to have them work for me anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I was gonna write a book called The Lessons Learned from My 5 Bookkeepers, because in about 3 years I went through 5 bookkeepers, and literally I hired them all through Kijiji, because like I said, I didn't really know any better. I didn't take any training obviously in this, and I would just hire someone doing my bookkeeping, and then a year later or 6 months later it would be just lots of glowing recommendations and all this padded resumes, and I wouldn't bother doing my due diligence, and I just assumed, right, nice people, and I'm a nice person, hey, this person's going to work out. No, it was disaster, and it was it was one after another, and I ended up going through 5 bookkeepers in a few years, and then I said, okay, that's enough. This is around the same time, like I said, that okay, this is enough of, I got to take this serious, and I ended up hiring my accountant's bookkeeper, and she's been fantastic, and it's amazing the things that we do and the lessons that we learn. But
you know what? I think you just touched on like the biggest point for hiring anyone is referrals. Like if you can find someone else that's already doing what you want to do, just try and use the same thing, repeat the same pattern, use the same people, and they've vetted them already, so you don't have to break them in. They usually are used to a certain kind of system that ideally should work for you as well. That's how a lot of my business works, is just by, you make a lot of connections, because the whole world is made on connections. When I think that's why so many people can succeed at real estate. Some people can fail because they don't have the people skills, but I don't know. That's where I'm going with it anyway.
Well, that's what I think is the hard, and the funny thing is that you actually hit a really good point. So you have to hire, I would recommend, a lot of people say, well, what if I can't do this, or what if I can't do that? Well, you're just going to have to hire those parts out. And if you're actually really an introvert, which a lot of people are, where they're just can't talk to anybody, you're just going to have to hire someone to do that part for you. You tell them what you want, and then they're going to relay the message. It's not the best way to do things. Like, I think you should practice your communication skills and all that stuff. I'm actually, I'm terrified of public speaking, and I'm a little bit anxiety ridden when I get into small areas with a lot of people. Yeah. And, I can talk to you one-on-one all day long, but when I get in those environments, I get kind of skittish. But that's something I've had to work on for the last 10 years, and I'm finally coming out of my shell in that department, where I'm not a nervous wreck around a group of people. So it's just something you have to work on, the things that you're not good at.
Oh yeah, work on them, or if it's possible, hire them out. Hire them out. Yeah. Don't try and sometimes you're beating a dead horse. There's certain things I don't know. I've done all kinds of things I shouldn't do, but like tiling. I tile all the time, but it's not beautiful work, and it really should be done by a professional.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You know what? I was telling a guy, I ran into a guy today. It's funny. I ran into a guy today at Home Depot, and he says, he says, "Hey, you're Dan Desveaux." And I went, "Yeah." And he said, I follow you on Instagram. And I said, "Oh, cool." And we got in this whole conversation about what you're not and what you're not supposed to do and what you're supposed to do. And I said, the fact that I'm actually really skilled in a lot of areas in construction is actually a little bit of a detriment, because what happens is, you just say, I'll do that. And next thing you know, you're doing all these dumb things that you're not supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be running and managing your business. You're not supposed to be in your business. Like I would be, the painter wouldn't show up. I'd be the painter for the day. The siding guy wouldn't show up. I'm the siding guy for the day. And that you can't, I still struggle with that, because I love getting dirty, right? I'm the Brian Baumler kind of guy that just likes to get in there and get stuff done. I have machinery, I have trailers, I have all these, the dumpster guy doesn't show up. I'm just running to go get my dump trailer, right? And it's really hard to not do those things, but you got to be disciplined, and you got to treat your business like a business. So I've been learning all these things. Yeah,
no, I totally agree with that. And I don't know. I had something, but I was listening to you too well.
Well, I could tell you lots of funny stories about all the dumb things I've done, I tell you. But you know what? We've all got these. If you've been in real estate more than 2 years, you've got lots of stories. And I've been in, like I said, buy and hold. I've had a buy and hold portfolio for about 16 years now, and I've been doing full-time flipping for about 6 years now, about that. And so we have endless stories. And it's funny, I was telling someone else the other day that if you're in the game, when we talk about, when we look at other people and we say, wow, that person's so lucky, or that person, so how do all these good things happen to that person? Any of those people that we're looking at and we're saying, wow, look at how lucky that person is, they got plenty of stories of sacrifice and hard work. And because if you've made it, you've struggled. And that's 100%. If you've made it anywhere, you've struggled. And that's why we can kind of commiserate when we run into each other when we're networking, and we can just give each other the eye, and we know the war that we've been through, right? Some of these. So you've invested in the U.S. I can't even imagine the challenges it must be.
Oh, we won't go into that right now, but yes, yes, there's lots of things, and then you have the distance. There's no way you can go over there and fix the problem.
I had a property about 12 years ago I bought in Windsor. I thought I would invest in Windsor. It's only an hour for me. I went to University of Windsor. And I thought, I'll just start buying, out of my zone here. And I bought a property. It went well for the first few months. And then, we got some tenants in there, and then we had problems. And I was having, again, problems trying to, like you're talking about, trying to get people to go over there to do stuff for me. And, like in hindsight, I should have kept it. I should have bought lots more, but it wasn't my time, and I didn't have the right systems in place at the time. And I ended up driving back and forth to Windsor, I don't know, probably 50 times in a year. And I thought, this is just nuts. What am I doing? Yeah. So I ended up selling the place. But in hindsight, of course, what I know now, I would have, like Windsor's just booming. I should have 20 properties when I had they were 50, 60,000, 100,000 a piece back then, and now those properties are double, triple that. But it's one of those things. I don't even know if I would invest there now. It's funny because, I'm trying to brand myself as the small town millionaire, and I actually enjoy that thing, right? I'm in a small town, and it is actually challenging doing stuff in a. Obviously, it's 5 minutes to anywhere, and there's no traffic. But then the bad parts is we don't have. Obviously, we don't have as many connections if you're in a bigger city. We don't have the workforce that the big city has. We don't have the options. We don't have we have big box stores, but we don't have all those little shops. We don't have the wholesale sort of opportunities. There's some challenges for sure being in a small town, but I enjoy the fact that there's no traffic here. I enjoy the fact that it's a 5-minute walk to the waterfront. I enjoy the fact that I can walk down to the city center literally 5 minutes from my house, and it's nice and relaxing. I don't know. It's a trade-off, I guess, but...
No, and it's too, like, it's the same thing when you're talking about Windsor compared to Sarnia. And, like, if you get good at a certain market, just specialize in it, because otherwise you get spread so thin. And I keep thinking, I need to do lease options. I need to start doing some bigger multifamilies instead of these duplexes. I need to do all this. I need to go all over the place. But what? I got a good system. Just do the same thing over and over again. But it's the same thing. You get, I want something new and exciting. I want to challenge myself. And you're, no, just. Be the person that's really good at one thing really well, and I don't know, it's maybe a little bit more boring, but
well, I'm doing a couple things here. I'm actually branching out a little bit as far as because I'm in a small town, you have to diversify a little bit. I think you could start out doing one thing or whatever, but there's not enough opportunity to stick to one thing. It's difficult anyway. But so I'm doing a number of things. But perfect example to that, I thought about, I don't know, it was about 5 or 6 years ago. I thought, everybody was making good money in rent-to-own. And I thought, well, I'm going to do rent-to-own here. And it's funny, about the conversation we were having earlier about knowing the personality type you are. I'm really nice, and I, like people and all that stuff. I tried to do a rent-to-own, and I went the 2 years. We had gone through the whole program with this guy, and he was putting money aside, and everything was going great until the very end. He couldn't get a mortgage. So I had the choice of either going a couple more years or whatever, or kicking this guy out. That's basically what your options are. So I thought, well, I don't have the, I can't kick this guy out. I'm just too nice. So I said, well, let's just do one more year. So we did one more year, and I encouraged this guy to get his credit score better so we could get a mortgage and all this stuff. And then another year went by, and then we're back to square one again. And it's funny, and I thought, you know what, I can't do this rent-own thing, because you have to have the guts to kick people out. And I actually don't. I mean, I do. I just don't want to be in that kind of business of having people rent off me. They've given me $10,000, and then 2 years later, then I'm kicking them out, saying, oh, sorry, too bad you didn't get your mortgage, and I'm kicking you out and keeping your money. Anyway, that's just me, my personality. And then I thought, you know what, maybe I'm just not cut out for rent-own, but I'm cut out for flipping, I'm cut out for buying holds, I'm cut out for maybe other things. And I had to, look at myself in the mirror and say, is this what I enjoy doing? So,
Yeah. But you think about it, though, if you're you basically you've turned that rent-to-owner into just a renter, right? And you're that's what happened. But then you're holding a deposit, and they're in charge of all the maintenance then too, right? So you're like, it's kind of a sweet deal, but it's not the plan. It's not the plan. You had a plan to roll the money, get it, work it into something else, right? You had an exit. I get it.
Well, I didn't lose on that deal only because what I did was I sold my position to another rent-to-own person.
Okay.
I said, listen, they've given me $10,000, so you'd have to buy that $10,000 out because it was a good deal for them because I kept the price fairly low. So I said, this is the deal. You can buy out this rent-to-own, but you got to give me the $10,000 and you deal with this guy. And the funny thing is I sold this rent-to-own to somebody else. They still haven't closed on it.
How long ago was that?
That was like, I don't know, 5 years ago or something. I know the guy to this day, and I know the same guy's in there, and I don't know, he probably just kept his $10,000 and just kept him as a renter.
His renter, yeah.
I don't know. It's not my cup of tea, but it's it is what it is.
Because like you had an exit, you wanted to get your money back, and I think with a lot of us, as we get more and more properties, you need a way to recycle your money, right? You have exits on everything, so you're a flipper, so you have an exit on the flip. I like to burr when I'm buying when I'm buying property. Because you want some sort of the money to keep rolling, because
absolutely
you'll run out of money. No matter how much money you have, you're going to run out of money.
Yeah.
and if you have a lot of money, then you just buy bigger stuff, and you run out of money just as fast.
Yeah, if you're in an up market, it's awesome because, like I was saying earlier, you just every year or two you just keep dipping in there and take some money out, and you can buy something else. But if you're in a flat market or even a down market, the buy and hold thing's tough because you just never have that unless you have really good, strong cash flow. It's tough to live off that money. You know what I mean? If you don't have if you're like a full-time investor where you're actually living off that money. It's tough, especially if you have a small portfolio as well. Like my portfolio is only about, I think I got about 70 units, something like that. And I have 3 staff.
Did you say 70, like 70?
Yeah.
I wouldn't call that a small portfolio then.
Guys, I don't know. I still think it's small, but I'm in a small town and I don't know. I think 70 units is fairly small, but So I have a staff. I have a full-time admin girl, and I have a couple of renovator guys. The cool part is that I flip as well. So I'm always using those guys. They're always bouncing back and forth between doing my properties, my
repairs and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when they're not doing that, they're at my flip houses. So it's never perfect. But this is it's running a lot better than it ever has, and it's going pretty decent, I'd say.
That sounds like a pretty good system to me. Like, that's the dream, is to take it in house, which I don't see how I'm ever going to do that in the States, but it's a nice little dream.
Yeah, well, it's tough to have employees that you can't. You got to be able to see these guys. The problem that I kept running into, I've gone down the path of having. Everybody's subcontractors. Yeah. But what happens is, what happens is you have a disaster or things get really busy, and all of a sudden everybody's busy and you can't get anybody on your job, and it's tough. There's guys that do it, right? Yeah. You have to really, you can't let these guys have a day off, because then if you do, they're just going to another person, right? And then it's tough to get them back. I know how the game works, but anyway, the system I got's going pretty good.
Yeah. With mine, I kind of do that same sort of thing. I hire a project manager or a contractor, and then they will sub out a lot of stuff. But I also have their own staff as well.
So you hire like sort of a general contractor guy, or project manager more? Sort of, kind of, yeah. A lot of times I use the property management I have, because they have a whole construction crew to do all the renovation. Yeah. So they're already there. So you're like, okay, well then hire the project, the property manager. I'll start paying you your money, and you can manage the thing. You can use your crew that you have on staff, and the stuff that's out of scope for them, like if it's more than painting and trim and stuff, and you can go hire the floor. Actually, they'll do flooring, but they'll hire like the foundation guys, and they'll hire roofers. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, if you absolutely, if you can go down that route, you're going to save yourself a pile of money, because hiring a general contractor and then paying top rates for all the crew, you're never going to be able to do it. But if you can hiring your property management company that's working for you is almost like hiring in-house.
It's close. Yeah, it's close. Yeah,
yeah,
as close as I'm going to get.
Yeah, because I mean, they would technically, either that you would hire their crew and then pay a 10% markup or something like that. Whereas if you were hiring a separate company, the rates are going to be way out of whack.
Yep.
So that's good. So how many crews you got going right now, or what do you got going?
I have one crew in Huntsville and one crew in Indiana or Indianapolis. Okay. So yeah.
Where's Huntsville? Like you mean?
Oh, Alabama.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Before I let you go,
all right,
I let you off the hook a little bit. So okay. you talked about your I always write down a couple words on my page, but you talked about your bookkeeper, and like you said that you learned you could write 5 things. Give us some quick things that you learned from the bookkeeper,
Well, I have 5 great stories from the 5 crazy bookkeepers, but I can just tell you a couple stories.
Sure.
For example, one of my bookkeepers didn't have backup systems, and I didn't ask the bookkeeper if she had backup systems. I just assumed, and we had an entire year of my books. Her computer crashed.
Oh my goodness!
She had her. This is even crazier. Is that she had one of those sticks? Like one of those sticks you stick in your laptop.
Yeah.
She had one of those in the computer that she backed up the stuff on, and when her computer crashed, it crashed the stick, the memory stick, and her computer, and we lost everything. So I lost an entire year's worth of stuff and had to fire her. She lost a year's worth of stuff. I had to go hire someone else.
Oh my goodness.
Another bookkeeper was just this little old lady who was great. I thought she was doing a wonderful job. And this is a true story. She came to my house one day. She was working for me for 6 months. She showed up at my back door one day, and I opened the door, and I said, "Hey, how are you?" I won't say her name. I said, "Hey, how are you?" And she started yelling at me, and I said, "What's wrong? What's going on?" And she said, "Your accountant stole the information out of my laptop." And I said, "What the hell are you talking about?" So, a couple days prior, we had a meeting with our accountant, and she was there. And again, this old lady had a laptop, and she got in her head, and this is a true story, she got in her head somehow that my accountant somehow put some kind of voodoo information sucking machine in the room and stole my information out of her computer. And I said, "Are you kidding me?" And then, of course, I went into this full panic mode that, oh my God, is this? So it turns out she would not give me my information. She quit, wanted me to pay her money, and just disappeared. So she was crazy.
What?
Yes, I had no idea, but she was literally insane. And took all the information with her. I was going to sue her and all the stuff. And I thought, oh, it's not worth it. So I lost 6 months of my bookkeeping stuff. I tried to track her down to say, listen, you can't keep my stuff hostage. And
no kidding. Yeah.
She was mad at me. And anyway, so that was the end of that. So that was another one of my bookkeepers. I'm trying to think of, I just had, of course, incompetent bookkeepers where, months would go by and I would say, okay, give me the report on such and such. And then they would stall for a few weeks. And then I'd say, hey, I really need that report. What's going on? Then I'd find out that everything was a mess. And then I just have to fire them. But anyways, to make a long story short, that's it falls on the boss, okay, and you're the one at the top, and I'm not gonna blame, even though I hired incompetent. That's actually what happened. Is I hired incompetent people. It's 100% my fault. I can't even blame those people because they were probably thinking they were doing the best they can do, and I didn't check up on them to make sure that they were doing the right things. And it was my own laziness and my own lack of discipline. And I learned a lesson. And, I'm not doing that anymore. right? And, that's what separates the people that the successful people from the people that aren't. Is that at least if you're doing stuff wrong, figure out what you're doing wrong, take full responsibility, 100%. And then move on from there and just keep on going. And that's what I did,
That's great advice. I love it. I love it. It's like it's totally taking responsibility for the situation.
Absolutely, and we've all done it. I mean, we've all done it. I mean, just that and I can't say I'm at that point I was incompetent in every area, because I was actually fantastic in certain areas. Like, for example, renovating the houses back then, and still, I mean, I was great at doing that and not reeling. I was like the chef who opens a restaurant, who's amazing at cooking, but incompetent in every other area. And then at some point, hopefully, you're going to realize that that's what's going on, and you start to hire the people for the things that you're not good at. And I finally figured that out a few years ago, and thank God I did.
And that's the E-Myth Revisited. There's the summary of the book. You summed it up in like 3 sentences. Yeah.
100%. I was the technician all day long.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be the guy baking the donuts, whatever. I didn't want to talk to the staff. I didn't want to hire. I didn't want to do any of the things. I just wanted to bake the donuts. And I think the what's that thing called again? The E-Myth. Yeah.
Yeah.
The example in the E-Myth, I think, is the apple pies maker or whatever. But yeah, I was great at making the pies, but I didn't want to face the music that I didn't know how to do anything else.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Dan, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do so?
So social media, anything on social media, just look up Dan Desveaux. My last name is Desveaux. It's a little tricky, my last name, but so you just look up Dan Desveaux, and all my social media stuff is Dan Desveaux.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. This is a great little chat.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks for having me on your show. I look forward to seeing you out there somewhere.
Oh, you will. I'll be over in London again soon.
Awesome.
We'll meet halfway.
Awesome. Look forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks.
Take care.